Healing Through Words, Rupi Kaur. I might not be pronouncing that right. Chapter 1, Hurting. Page 21 from her book, Milk and Honey. If I knew what safety looked like, I would have spent less time falling into arms that were not. Chapter 1, Hurting. It was the experience of sexual and physical abuse that initially drew me to write. This particular violence went so deep it silenced me. I felt voiceless and unable to tell anyone about what I referred to as the bad stuff. Then, around the time I was 18 years old, I went to see a new therapist at school. In our first session, he introduced me to the word trauma. The word struck me like a knife. Trauma. That's how the therapist referred to my bad stuff. I remember sitting on his stiff leather couch in silence, unsure of what to say because normal people like me didn't experience trauma. Trauma sounded like a word used to describe life-threatening car accidents or the horrors soldiers experienced during war. In our second session, the therapist said I may be experiencing PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. I remember trying really hard not to roll my eyes. At the end of the session, I walked out and never saw him again. Years later, I realized the therapist wasn't being dramatic. Sexual, domestic, mental, physical, and emotional abuse is trauma, and survivors of this trauma fall under the umbrella of those who experience PTSD. I guess when you experience something so traumatic at a young age and so often, it becomes normalized. As a child, your frame of reference for what's normal becomes skewed. With this new information, I accepted that I needed to take steps towards healing. Writing became a part of the healing journey quite quickly. It was difficult to openly talk about what I'd survived, so I turned to my journal because writing felt safe. As I began to find the words for what happened, I began to feel free. This is how the seeds of my first book, Milk and Honey, were planted. The exercises in this chapter explore different themes surrounding trauma. Go through them at your own pace. Your safety and well-being come first. If you feel that you don't have any trauma to explore, that's okay. You don't have to have trauma to dive deep. You are already rich and never-ending. Trauma isn't what defines us. It isn't what makes us interesting. Our voice and how we use it is. If there are exercises to ask you to reflect on a certain experience and you haven't had that experience, just refer to something else. No matter the degree, we all have painful experiences and all of them are worth investigating. Let your inner artist come out and play. If you need to tweak the exercises to make them work for you, please feel free to do so. I hope what you write in this chapter shows how much of a warrior you are. I wrote this about exactly a year ago. What trauma looks like. Close your eyes and take 10 deep breaths, nice and slowly. After the 10th breath, spend some moments meditating on the word trauma. Then draw what trauma looks like in the space below. I accidentally just wrote words and forgot to draw, I accidentally skipped ahead to the next exercise without realizing it. My words say, trauma is a pit of never-ending darkness. Darkness surrounding me everywhere. There's no end, no light in sight. I am alone on a black, slick floor curled up in the fetal position. I feel lonely, cold, uncomfortable, sad, helpless. No one comes looking for me. They don't notice I'm gone. In a few simple phrases, what does it look like? Darkness, fetal position, loneliness, abandoned. The thing I'm most scared of people finding out about me, my hidden truth. I'm afraid of disappointing people. I've been wired to feel guilt and shame. These are my words. I have been wired to feel guilt and shame towards any negative emotion, i.e., sadness, anger. I've often been as vulnerable as I've known how to be in the moment, but my lack of communication skills, unknowingly autistic until the age of 32, others' reactions when I showed these feelings would cause them to be uncomfortable and react towards me in a harmful way, which caused me to feel shame and guilt and like I needed to keep searching to be happier, with the mindset that if I could achieve being happy, I would no longer experience these feelings. through my ever-longing life journey of trying to attain happiness is to be able to provide a loving, compassionate space to experience these emotions. There may have been external influences that took part in experiencing these heavy emotions, and that is not our fault, but we must take responsibility for our own feelings and not place blame on others for them. If we find ourselves always being surrounded by people who hurt us, we can work on recognizing our own needs and wants and voicing them and our boundaries. Stick with the people who put effort into understanding you and respecting your boundaries. It is okay to create space between you and another person if they continue to overstep your boundaries. You can send them love from a distance while simultaneously making sure you stay authentic within yourself. This is a true form of exhibiting self-love. Written circa February 2024.